I'm just up at our Thornton ground. These cows, you can see there's like a strip across there. This top field gets rotationally grazed, but the rest of it doesn't. And these are the only groups of cows that we have that aren't rotationally grazed. And that's because there's not a credible water source here. Everything is fed to a spring down in the bottom there, which sort of feeds both sides for water. And we can't get any water up onto these top fields. And right up, that field there goes like right back. And yeah, we can't get any water into them. Kind of tossing around ideas at the minute for a solar powered water pump. I don't know if anybody's got anything like that they're running. Be interested to know. But they look pretty happy. I love it up here. It's like my favourite part of the farm. Little bit of a history lesson. This block of ground here, it's about 70 acres at Thornton. We've owned it since I think just after World War II. My granddad and great granddad bought this, and they would, at that time they farmed at Enderby, which is about 5 miles away. It's a similar sort of distance to where the farm is now, but in a slightly different direction. And back then, to get cows here, they used to walk them because they didn't have lorries and big trailers. We're a bit more lucky now, I suppose, that we can get them here a bit easier. But yeah, imagine walking your cows all that way. I've walked some sheep a couple of miles before, but I suppose it wasn't the traffic. Back at home now, and just moving this group of cows and calves across this field, over the brook bridge and onto the next field to start rotational grazing on there. They've ate up where they are, and we're just moving them on. The girls have all run up the top end. They all seem pretty happy. They're on quite a big patch today. The fence runs down here because there's a footpath just there, and I didn't want to fence the footpath off so any walkers had to cross over the electric fence, because that's just an accident waiting to happen. We're pretty lucky here at home because we have mains water to every arable field and to every grass field, but we also have this brook line that runs through these trees just behind here. Quite a big brook line, and it runs through the whole of the meadows. So when we're down here, we can use these pasture pumps to bring water to the cows. And what we do is we just run that pipe and drop it into the water. So every day we have them on these skids and we can just drag them up with us. And the cows just come along and they just push on here with their noses and the water comes out. It's simple, but it gives them fresh water and it's free. So we're now at our last group of heifers to move. Got to put a new fence up here, and then I can go for my breakfast. I thought I'd just show you how we put fences up. Barley's here. I've also got Quinn. Essentially, we put these reels with an electrified poly wire on, and we hook them onto this little bracket that we've made. So that's on the side of the Polaris, just on there, and you'll just use this hook on the reel, hook it on, flip this little catch up, and that'll let it run out. And the handle on these are plastic, so you don't conduct any electricity. You just hook them up, so you can walk out, hook them onto the fence, and it should then run. Made a little rack as well along the back of the Polaris to hook all of the extra reels on. And then this is for the post. So as we drive along, that'll run out, and we'll just put the posts in, just like a little quiver. Makes you feel like Robin Hood. You just pull them out, put the posts in, and when you get to the other end, I'll show you, but we hook it on the electric fence, and then that electrifies the whole of the wire. So now we're at the other end of the wire. We've run it out. Cows are still in the old paddock from yesterday. What we do is we just hook this reel along the electric fence and hook the electric fence around that hoop piece. And what that does then is it electrifies the whole reel, so that if you touch that, you'll get an electric shock, but you can still unhook it at the other end because, like I said, that was plastic. Then what we do is we have geared the buggy up with this sort of bar along the front, so that we can just drive over the wire. We don't have to unhook it. We can just literally drive over it, and it'll run underneath there, and there's a pipe underneath to stop it hooking up on anything. And yeah, you can just drive over the top and keep going through groups of cows if you want. What we've got to do now is I'll let those girls into this paddock, and then I'll take up that other fence on the other side of them, and then I can go for my breakfast. In the yard now, got to feed these girls. These are the ones we bought in. If you were watching the last video, you'll see them coming in that one. Got to give them some silage, and then I'm going to give them some cereal. We actually feed the silage and bed all of our cattle with the McHale straw shredder, which is an absolute beast. Put it behind the 6410, which is my favourite tractor on the farm. And it does a cracking job, to be honest. Really, really good, wouldn't be without it. We had a Kuhn one before, but you couldn't put any silage through it. It was rubbish. You'd only do straw with that, but this McHale, is fantastic. As you can see behind me, the girls have all been fed and I've drizzled their corn along the top. Now, I've ordered some stuff. We've been working with Harbro to put some rations together for these girls, and the stuff's coming next week, and I'll talk a bit more about it then in a bit more depth. However, we've been putting a ration together, finishing ration for these, a growing ration for the others when they come in, which will be end of October, November time. And the reason why I wanted to work with Harbro is because they have some products that are assured by the Carbon Trust for reducing methane production in cattle, which is really great. And they also promote the growth rates of the cattle as well. So hopefully that should have a positive benefit on our profitability. But the other reason I wanted to work with them is they've put this ration together for us, which is spring beans, spring oats and spring barley. And it'll all get milled on farm. It's all been produced on the farm. And essentially that'll mean that these girls, whatever they've eaten during their whole life, will have all been produced on the farm. So the only food miles they'll ever produce is when they leave on the lorry, which I think is pretty good. So we're just in the shed now, milling a bit of corn for the cattle mix. You can see it's coming through there nicely. Once everything's milled, we have to load it all up into the Keenan feeder to mix it together. We have actually sold this Keenan feeder and we've swapped it for an Emily Duo mix, which will be here in about a month's time, but because the weather's forced our hand and we've had to bring some cattle in, we're still having to use it for now. So this is the setup. Essentially we have the trailer here, which we use as a hopper to fill anything that needs to be milled. It goes out the back, up this auger, into the top of that hopper there, which it then drops through these rollers just there and into whatever we're milling it into. Currently the bucket, sometimes the hopper. In an ideal world, I mean, this is a bit old school. It's a bit old hat and just kind of made of whatever we've got. In an ideal world, I'd like to have a nice hopper here with an auger up directly into that so we can kind of utilize this back corner of the shed, because at the minute, you can't really do anything with it. One day though, finances dictate all of this, but we'll get there. Well, it's been a couple of days now since the snippet you've just watched, and I have got issues with the mill. Essentially, we've come to mill some beans, and it has rollers in there. It has like a pre-crushing roller and then two other rollers that do the main part of the crushing, and the pre-crush is great for beans. We've come to start milling some beans, and essentially all the rollers have been worn down. It's perfect for grain. It'll mill grain great because it's small, it'll just drop through and get milled. But with the beans, as they're like marbles, it just doesn't want to handle them, doesn't want to take them in. We've took it apart and we looked at putting new rollers in it, but the new rollers were 800 quid each, and there's 3 of them, and a new mill wasn't really that much more money. So we've had to opt for a new mill. We've actually bought though a bigger one, which is nearly twice the width of this, so its output will about double, which will be really good because we're going to mill a lot of stuff, but it's just money we could have done without spending at the end of the day. One piece of good news that we have had today though, is I have actually had my pallet of bits and pieces turn up from Harbro, as well as this IBC of molasses. This IBC of molasses is essentially used just to dampen the dust down on the mix and make it a little bit more palatable for the cow, so it's just not like eating flour. And the pallet has my Rumatech Rumer Buff on it. Essentially that Rumer Buff is what I was talking about earlier in the video, which will reduce our methane production on our cattle by around about 25%. And what happens is that the energy that's usually used to produce the methane is then used to grow the cattle, and ultimately it will reduce your feed intake by about 10%, and it will increase your feed efficiency so that you will have around about a 5% reduction in the cost per kilo of daily live weight gain on your cattle, which is massive. And yeah, that's what that's for. It should be really, really good, and I'm looking forward to giving it a go, but I've got to get this new mill in first. Right guys, thank you very much for watching. If you could like the video and hit the subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. Hopefully by the next time we see each other, we'll have the new mill in. But until then, from me and the girls, have a good one.